Buenos dias, buenos dias. Welcome to another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. So let's get with it. Let's talk some boxing. Let's go ahead and talk about, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. The whole Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, and I guess now even Benavidez, because 175 has been given a breath of fresh air. In a good way and a bad way, to be honest. Let me first start off by saying, for those of you that forget, there's various contexts at hand when we're talking about all these fighters, okay? So one, let's not forget that Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, they've given us two good fights. More importantly, these fighters, one that represents Canada, the other one that represents Russia, but, you know, they're both Russian fighters, or at least that's how it's been sold, right? So let's just call it the Russian fighters. Just chugging down this morning coffee. So these two fighters have given us two good fights at Riyadh. Okay, let me repeat that. Two good fights at Riyadh. At Riyadh. All right, so it depends how you want to interpret that. For me, given that a lot of fighters have done like a, how would you say this? Not a homecoming, but a trial. That's probably the best word. They've given Riyadh season. They've given Turkey Al-Sheikh a trial run on the whole political sports washing. So shout out to all these fighters that have done it. And again, that's why David Benavidez is like one of the first PBC star that isn't solo, by the way. It's not like so much like a Canelo Alvarez, but the first PBC star to acknowledge the political side of sports washing. And we'll get into more details about that. But again, guys, Bivol and Beterbiev. And the thing is, like, I don't understand how fans, you guys forget context. You automatically start to blame fingers and you guys forget about the context, guys. And the funny thing is that there's nothing wrong right now. There's nothing wrong. The winners are the fighters. Even the Turkey mogul is the winner. And us fans are the winners. So you got to hit the brakes, man. Pause and ask yourselves, what are you really complaining about? Right? Really, what are you complaining about? You've got fighters in Benavidez, fighters in Bivol and Beterbiev that have already acknowledged names at cruiserweight, guys. They've been asked this in the last year and a half. They've been asked names like Opataya and even Surdo Benavidez, or just been asked about cruiserweight, and they've all acknowledged it, guys. That's a plus. Put it this way, what if they didn't acknowledge it? What if fans like me, practitioners like me that never even heard this stuff, well, I would still be thinking in the zone of just 175, right? Light heavyweight. Think about that for a second, guys. So when you've got fighters that are acknowledging cruiserweight, acknowledging names, upwards, northbound, that's a plus, man. That's a plus. Because I think they're going to go that direction anyways. There's champs up there. There's good champs at cruiser. So just remind yourselves, man. Do yourselves a favor, a service. Don't do yourself a disservice in forgetting context, man. Okay? So, back to 175 of these names. Yeah, you guys like to, I wouldn't say complain, man. I would say benefit of doubt that a lot of you are confused. Give you the benefit of doubt that you're confused because you forget about context, okay? And what I mean by that is, again, these two Russians are the first ones to fight at Riyadh, right? Bivol and Beterbiev. They gave us those fights. Don't fault them for anything that's going on right now. Don't fault them. A lot of fans didn't want the trilogy. I wanted the trilogy because I liked those fights, okay? I want to see what Beterbiev will do in the third changeup. I want to see what Bivol would do in the third changeup. Might get some knockdowns. You might get some stoppages, right? That's normal, guys. So that's why we were optimistic for those fights. Some fights said, nah, I've already seen enough. Let's move on. I give that idea credit too. But again, guys, these two acknowledge their agreement, right? They're 1-1. So why not see a third fight? If you guys like the idea of trilogies in the past or series of 4 fights and more, you know, I mean, you want to boast about Sugar Ray Robinson and LaMotta having more than 5 fights, right? If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if it was 6 or it was 5, but I know for sure at least 5 fights. If you want to acknowledge that and respect that, then what's wrong with wanting a third fight, right? For Undisputed, by the way. I'm like complaining about context. Let me remind myself that it's for Undisputed, or was for Undisputed. So then we learned that because Turkey Al-Sheikh's been wanting guys like Benavidez and perhaps even maybe Tank Davis, you know, I don't really believe that the Arabs care what's going on in the North American side of news or how their handlers are doing business. I think Turkey Al-Sheikh made it very clear that he doesn't like the middleman. He doesn't like to deal with those guys. He likes to deal with the star directly, which is obviously, it makes sense, right? You deal with the star, forget the promoters and all these brands. And I think that's what Turkey Al-Sheikh's been saying for the longest. So anyways, he finally got David. But David, and I'm probably going to go off tangent here because I forgot what I said about a minute ago. David Benavidez, guys, because we're talking about context, all right? And let's not blame Bivol or Beterbiev that they're at fault, all right? They're the breakdown of, so I was talking about Undisputed, that's what it was. The reason why we're not getting the Undisputed third fight, all right? It's possible that we can get a third fight anyways, right? But the reason why we're not getting Undisputed anymore was because the PBC, David's handlers, they imposed themselves. They interrupted the business flow of Turkey Al-Sheikh. Some of us will have different opinions on that. All right? If you respect that Bivol and Beterbiev were gonna fight later on in the year, and right now we're unveiling more details between those fighters, between those two Russian fighters. But if we respected that, then they're not at fault, okay? Let them have their third run. But again, the PBC, David's handlers, they imposed themselves into disrupting Turkey Al-Sheikh's matchmaking, if you will, over at Riyadh season. And don't forget, guys, that David Benavidez, he was running the scripts from the PBC. Oh, I'm not going to fight in Riyadh. I'm a Vegas fighter. Now you guys understand, for example, why you see all those tarps in the PBC, the MGM Grand Resorts points and rewards, or that DraftKings. I mean, all these sponsorships that are ideally more reflected towards Las Vegas, right? So obviously, you think David cares about that stuff? David Benavidez doesn't care about no MGM Plus rewards or DraftKings, man. Now, David is an intelligent fighter. Unfortunately, here's what happens in life, man. When you're given opportunities, obviously, but when you're giving all these things, penthouse privileges, if you will, right? And that includes even fights, the fights that you're being matched up with. When you're giving these things and you get new cars and you get a house, it's very difficult to go against your, forgive me for saying it like this, but your sugar daddy, right? Oh, hey, man, it's hard to go against him or say things bad about that guy. And that's the situation that David fell in. And that's why David, for the longest, was kind of defending or protecting the idea of a PBC business. I don't know why. Obviously, I know why because of what I just said. But, man, you're giving a cut to your promoter, your manager, to the PBC. You're giving too much cuts, right? At the same time, David's making good money, and not as good money as all the stars over at Riyadh season, but he was making good money, so we get it. So it's hard for David to go against that. But now, guys, David's seeing stuff that's going on in New York, the mega fights with Fury and Usyk. You got Canelo, the biggest guy in the sport of boxing. They're all acknowledging Saudi Arabian sports washing, guys. They're all acknowledging it. So if you know David Benavidez, he's a smart kid, man. You would know that in time, David's going to implode mentally, man. He's like, damn, I can't even get the fights that I want over here on my side of the street, even though it's low money on my side of the street. He sees all the actions going over there. He sees all the social media feeds, Ring Mag, and all the news is covered in Saudi Arabian sports watching. Of course, he wants a piece of that pie, man. He wants a taste of it. As I was saying, the trial run. David wants a taste of that trial run as these other stars, and that's what happened. So a quick summary: when Turki Al-Sheikh invited David, I'm sure there was a game plan. I'm sure David, and you guys heard me, I've been saying this for months before. I mean, David was probably coached on what to say, on what to deny during that sit down with Turki Al-Sheikh, right? And so David, like, he knew there's things that he couldn't do. So it's like, why even stay there? And he cut out from the main event. Cut out from the main event. There may have been some like schemes of notoriety, right? David even was there to begin with, and his plan from the get-go was to cut out anyways. But I give David Benavidez benefit of doubt. And forget the PBC or his promoters. I'm not talking about them. I'm giving David himself benefit of doubt that when he heard these things, he was like, damn, you know what? I'm game. How do we know this, guys? Because everything that David is saying now fits into what Turki wanted initially. Turki's a simple guy, man. Come on, let's not complicate this stuff. Turki's just a casual with a lot of freaking money, okay? David knows this. You guys know David's a smart guy. So anyways, during that sit-down, I was like, damn, I can't do any of this stuff that Turki wants me to do. Freak it. He's pissed off. David cuts out, man. He cuts out. He goes back to PBC World. David and his lawyers, they talk to the PBC World and his promoters. This is what happened. They talk about it. The PBC don't like it. I'm more than sure David said, I don't mind it. I'm down with it, right? And then what happens? The PBC, they start to think. They talk to Suleiman and they like impose again. They interrupt the business. Not even for David's sake. That's the funny part. They don't really do it for David. They do it for themselves because they're trying to hold David as a piece of their business. Without David, where does PBC go, guys? Tank Davis wants to quit. Where does PBC would be dead? David Benavidez is the only reason why PBC is even still floating. You guys know this, right? So David, he knows that he was offered that stuff over at Alcatraz, a theme in Alcatraz, right? That included a Callum Smith fight. But what can David do? He can't do anything because he's under contract. He has limitations. So, and we were talking about all this stuff. We were saying this. I was saying this stuff on streams. I've been wanting David to cross over. And that's why I get a lot of respect on these streets, because guys knew I was already talking about that. And so what does David do? He crosses over. David makes a deal with the PBC and like saying, look, man, you don't do this for me, I'm going to talk. So shout out to David for that. I'm more than sure that's what happened. Because at the end of the day, David is looking like a clown. David is looking like a clown for defending the PBC, and David didn't like that stuff. So David said, you got to do this for me or I'm gonna talk. So shout out to David for doing that, right? So now David's over with Riyadh. Unfortunately, he's probably still giving PBC and his promoters a cut on however they handled it, right? Because we saw the Kubas World. They were sitting to Turkey. But guys, don't forget, again, that's what I'm talking about context. Don't forget that the PBC World, they weren't down with the Riyadh season. But now they are? Why? Because PBC ain't got no money, guys. They ain't operating the way they did before. And David is the reason why PBC is now, bending their arm for the business. So get all that out of the way right now. We're talking about the business side of it. And for you guys to remember, not point fingers. It's not David's fault. It's not Bivo's fault. It's not Beterbiev's fault. The fault was the North American continent of boxing. They couldn't acknowledge what was going on right now with Saudi Arabian sports washing. And hey, what can I say? I get it, but unfortunately, as we say in Spanish, el dinero es lo que manda. The money is what controls. It's what talks. And that's why I always said, man, I want all these PBC fighters go over to the Saudis and get that money. At the same time, try and terminate your contract with PBC. Forgive me for saying that. For those of you that love PBC and the way what I'm saying, it hurts your ears. Who cares, man? As they say, we're not making any cut out of it. What do we care? We want what's best for the fighter, not the cut. Not the cut that PBC or the managers or handlers are getting, right? And I always say thank you, PBC, for a great 10 years of boxing. Thank you. You was really, really, I'm being sincere. You did a great job. You gave us good fights. But hey, man, nothing's perfect. You know, your time's done, man. It's over. I'd be impressed if you were able to still float by getting some sort of new deal under Riyadh season benefits. I don't know how you would call this, but whatever, man. If it's done, it's done. Karma, man. Karma for everybody. And that's not a knock towards PBC. I'm just saying, like, the Golden Boy went through it. The PBC, taking fighters here and there. This seems karma, man. It is what it is. You learn from mistakes and, we move on. Now back to the Russian cats. The Russian fighters, Bivol and Beterbiev, guys. And I've been telling you guys for the longest. You guys are learning and listening. Fans wanted the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol to give Benavidez a unification shot, right? Now that Benavidez got the belt. And guys, you got to think for a second, man. It hurts me. You guys can't ravel this. Bivol and Beterbiev, the money, the purses for the final fight, the third undisputed fight, was exclusive to their circumstances. Let me repeat that. It was exclusive to their own circumstances. It doesn't matter if Beterbiev and Bivol was late, that they didn't fight years before. That was their business. That was their series, all right? So when you get an external source, not David Benavidez, when you get an external source like the PBC and the handlers, when they interrupt that business and they take away a belt from your series, why would you entertain to give David's handlers a piece of that business to unify for undisputed? Why would you do that? You devalued their final fight. So that's one thing. They devalued it. So when Suleiman and the PBC, when they took that final belt, we no longer had undisputed finalization in that trilogy. It was gone. There was no more undisputed. Fans were just talking about, okay, well, at least give us a third fight with the third belt, right? As time goes by, in between this time, behind the scenes, we can see that Turkey is doing some sort of deal with the PBC, meaning he wants the fighters. And Hall Heyman is thinking about it, he's acknowledging, and then we get Morel, we get Benavidez. So things change. There's a shift in the business, guys. So you guys are not really focusing on the business side of the shift, right? You guys are focusing on what the fighters are doing. The fighters don't have control over that, guys. The fighters want the biggest bags, the biggest purses, right? But you're forgetting that the fighters have their own routine in life. They got to stay in the gym and be active. They don't really care about what's going on. Well, they care about making sure the fights happen, but they don't know really the details behind the scenes. That's what the managers and the promoters and the turkeys, that's their role. All right. So then you get the IBF with the Michael Leifert imposing that mandatory, right? We learned that Turkey really doesn't have control over all the sanctioning bodies on what needs to happen, right? So Bivol goes a different direction. Beterbiev complains because he wants to stay active, right? Turkey says he's no longer interested in the trilogy undisputed at Riyadh. Don't get that confused. It's not that Turkey doesn't really care anymore about, well, he doesn't really care anymore about it, but Turkey wanted the final fight in Riyadh, as the first two were, right? So when Turkey saw that all that stuff broke through because the WBC imposed themselves for the benefit of PBC, when Turkey saw all that, Turkey's like, man, forget it, man. I ain't going to deal with it. That's what happened. And that's why Turkey was acknowledging that the alternative for Bivol and Beterbiev and their handlers, that they said, okay, you know what? Maybe we can do this over in Russia. And then the Russian investors saw that opportunity. That since the Arabs no longer wanted inclusive or exclusive business with that trilogy, right? Because it didn't exist anymore, undisputed. The Russians said, you know what? Okay, we'll take it at least. We'll do it for our fans, for our people, for those two, and we'll make sure they make good money, right? As an alternative to the Saudi bags. That stuff fell through too. Why, guys? Here's the other one. You guys aren't focusing on what's going on with Matchroom. I think the reason why all this stuff is breaking down is Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, he's being insecure because really what's left for the Matchroom brand? What really represents Matchroom right now? You know what it is? It's Alexander Usyk, the #1 pound for pound, the top dog at heavyweight. Alexander Usyk gets so much respect, guys. He gets so much respect, but realistically, guys, Usyk's time is shortening out. So give it a year or two. Where does the Matchroom brand go when Usyk's gone? Who do you have left, right? You have Boots Ennis, right? We see weird things going on with Boots Ennis right now. His handlers, Eddie Hearn. And then you have Dimitri Bivol, guys, right? Bivol right now, who has most of the belts at 175. Don't you think Eddie Hearn's insecure for the brand of Matchroom? Guys, don't forget, Matchroom, that brand. He needs to conserve that value, right? So Eddie Hearn right now is the reason. He himself, he's a very clever guy too. He can convince guys on what to do and what to say to the public. It's really Matchroom, all right? I'll give you another one too. When Eddie Hearn's speaking highly about that Yalal Gafai, right? The what is it? The Palestinian Brit, I forgot where, or Yemen Brit, whatever. He's pushing that guy, who, in my opinion, Gulai's he's nothing really special in my opinion. But really, again, when you have a champion, you want to conserve that value, right? So what happens behind the scenes, as usual, whether it's UCAT or VADA, we get an adverse finding, so that way Matchroom gets to still promote a champion in Galau's division or whatnot. You get weird things going on, guys. And he's not the only one. You see things with Frank Warren, too, with Queensberry, who has all the heavyweights. Go back to the Bacoli versus Parker card. Remember that one where it was supposed to be Dubois and Parker, if I'm not mistaken, right? That was supposed to be the fight. And so you get all these switcheroos going on because they see how fluid you can be in switching fights around, because Turkey doesn't care. Turkey only wants the fights, and you got to stage them where he wants them to be staged. And so the promoters get to mix and match what they want to do. They can do things at last minute, the same way PBC has been doing stuff too, right? Switching guys out of insecurities to conserve a particular fighter or star or champion. So really, if anyone's to blame, guys, if you guys really want to keep on, if anyone's to blame right now on what's going on with Bivol's side, it's Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn would probably said, you know what? Right now, everything's a mess. We don't know when we can get the better be of finalization. You got to do your Michael Leifert thing. Really, Bivol, what else do you have to prove now when you gave us 2 undisputed fights, right? Bivol's a badass, man. Don't forget that. He's a badass champ. He's a badass champion, a really, really good fighter, pound for pound. So who cares if he loses more belts, all right? He already lost a belt because of politics. He lost a belt because of politics, not because of evasion, guys. As I said, don't forget the context, all right? The handlers of Benavidez, the handlers, not Benavidez, the handlers are the reason why they took that strap away from Bivol. They disrupted the business of Bivol and Beterbiev, disrupted their bags. And what happened? Turkey lost interest because he couldn't sell undisputed for the 3rd time in Riyadh season. A Riyadh season place where Benavidez and his team, they weren't acknowledging, but now they are. So you guys got to see, it's the business side of things. What fighters are being coached, what to say. Coached, again, Matchroom to Bivol, PBC to Benavidez, and et cetera, guys. So my point of this whole video is really don't blame the fighters so much. Give them benefit of doubt. I know guys like to attack Team Benavidez. Guys like to attack Bivol, or they like to attack Beterbiev. Who knows why? You guys get confused from the context, but it's the handlers, guys, because of insecurity on how to conserve a fighter for your brand. Right? Bivol, Matchroom. Boots, Matchroom. Yalal Yafai, Matchroom. David Benavidez, PBC. Morel, well, I don't know Morel so much, but Morel was kind of like a trial of taste for Turkey and the Kubas gang. So, and as I said in the beginning of the video, we should all be happy right now. Just don't be careful where you're blaming the faults, guys. And so what I'm saying is, what I don't like is, but who am I, right? Who am I to say? It's really David's destiny of point of view. But why still give 10% to PBC and the others? 10% here and there while you're still fighting at Riyadh, right? Because we heard David say, well, you know, I'm still with PBC. I'm still with, okay, it's cool. But you're still giving them a cut. I recommend, David, don't do that, man. Just go solo. Why don't you try and buy yourself out of that contract and go? And again, we can't do that because of loyalty, right? Again, what these fighters do, what they praise for what they got, right? The opportunities. And I understand why it's hard. But guys, for all these fans, for all you fans that feel like you're gangster, right? Oh, we gotta do it this way and that way. We know boxing is the Wild West, so whatever. Eddie Hearn said Canelo is not a loyal person. The whole PBC propaganda, Jake Paul, all these things flaming Canelo for saying that dude's not loyal. Right? Loyal. What? Give 10% to others when in a fight you can die? That's loyal? Right? I might die, but I got to give you 10%. So if I have second thoughts to go somewhere else because of a contract agreement, I'm not loyal? Come on, man. Y'all, you guys stop being soft like that, man. This is the perfect time in boxing, prize fighting, the reformation of prize fighting. Let me say that again. The reformation of prize fighting, where a Saudi political mogul is throwing nice money. That's your opportunity to go solo, man. Forget this loyalty thing, giving your 10% to others. Again, that's all debatable. I mean, each to their own. I'm just happy that David now is going to get more fights. Bivol is going to get more fights. Again, I've been saying it for the longest. They're all going to go to cruiser. So as you see now, Undisputed is interrupted. It's a breath of fresh air. I hope I made my points clear, man, in this video, because that's what I wanted to talk about, that we're really complaining for nothing. Or I see a lot of fans are complaining for nothing, and guys like to troll. Who's at fault? A lot of you guys are idiots, man. You're nerds. You're nerds, man. Talking about Bivol's ducking or was ducking or doing the surgery. By the way, it's a good thing that Bivol now got that surgery on the way. Might as well get out of the way. It reminds me kind of like when Canelo got the surgery when we couldn't make the rematch with the Golovkin fight, right? With the second fight. So he got that clenbuterol adverse finding. By the way, WADA now, you know, they amended clenbuterol, right? Clenbuterol is good now. Hey, man, I'm going to go eat some Clen tacos right now myself. Why? Because WADA said it's cool now, right? After 2019 or 2018, WADA, they said, you know what? For any contamination cases, it's okay. That's what they said. They gave it a high raise. It wasn't like that before. Before it was like zero tolerance, right? And shout out to Victor Conte. I hope he's doing better, man, because I know Conte's right now, he's going through his cope, his challenge, dealing with pancreatic cancer. So I hope the best for Victor Conte and the snack brand. You know, again, don't point fingers, man. Just let it go, man. Just ride the wave and let's not blame others, man. Don't do that. I've always been saying that. So forget the propaganda on that. Just understanding that in doping, anti-doping, or elite level sports, everybody's on some gear. So stop blaming, stop making themes about Team Reynoso or Snack and all that stuff. It's just good to make videos so you guys understand that it's an even playing field, because everybody's doing it and we got brands doing it, man. So it is an even playing field. Anyways, that's a different topic. But again, I'm happy. David's happy. Bivol got his surgery. Now he's going to be more prepped up. It's going to probably take at least a year to get back in the game. Beterbiev going to fight Dion Nicholson. Everybody's being active, man. Everybody's cool, man. So just stick with that. And I'll end it with that one. So I'll catch you guys on the next one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. Peace out, y'all.